Leia Healthcare, looking after you always. Proud sponsors of Real Health with Karl Henry.
Hello, welcome to Real Health. Me, Karl Henry, in association with Leia Healthcare. Folks, we could all do a bit of therapy right now. Even though we are stuck at home, we still seem to be time poor. So how about some 5-minute therapy to help us cope with the stresses and strains of life at the moment? This week's guest, psychotherapist Crosby, aka the Mind Geek, is an Instagram sensation with her daily bite-sized snippets of mindfulness wisdom, and her new book, 5-Minute Therapy, is out now. Sarah Crosby, welcome to Real Health. How's it going?
Thanks very much for having me today, Karl. Things are going well. Yeah, they're going well.
Oh, it's great to have you on. So I have to, I'm fascinated by the Instagram sensation bit, and I'm sure you hate being described as that, but there's no other words to describe it. Your account, and even looking at your account with the way you put things, the snippets, they're very simple, they're very usable. People really react to it.
Yeah, it was definitely unprecedented, the volume of people that are over there on that page now. I guess I began it because I was in the middle of my master's studying to be a psychotherapist, and I felt like I had all of this information at my fingers that, you know, had I had this at a previous time in my life, I would have felt less alone. I would have felt like I had, well, just more of an understanding of what it was I was actually going through. So part of it was that, you know, wanting to put out information that was easy to digest, that was wasn't overwhelming, but didn't patronize. It didn't take away from the message at the core. So I tried to do that, and it seems to have landed with people and become what it has. So yeah.
Let's chat about psychotherapy and why you got into it. You mentioned it there yourself, so I'm intrigued to find out more.
Yeah, well, how far back do I go? I guess
go as far. We have all the time in the world. Go as far as you want.
Yes, I should have a chaise lounge here now. Well, God. So, I guess originally I went to college and I was studying archaeology and geography, so very different. And it was during that period of time that I became very interested in fitness and nutrition. And alongside studying archaeology, I studied to become a personal trainer. And I think I was studying it more for my own benefit, to have more of an understanding of health and physical health. But my relationship with body image and food was rather fraught, and it became disordered, I'd say. So it took some time for me to address that and to get into a healthy, place with body image and food again. But I guess that's what led me into therapy originally. So I was in university, studied, became a personal trainer. I remember being over in Portugal. I was doing some work experience over there, and we were going on these long hikes every day. And I was walking with people, and the funny thing was they wanted to, back in the gym in the complex we were staying in, they wanted to work out for maybe 5-10 minutes, and then the rest of the session would be sort of speaking to me about everything that was going on in their lives. And we'd go on these hikes, and you'd be with people every day, and they'd be talking about some really difficult things that they'd be experiencing. And I didn't have the capacity to know how to respond, to know how to deal with that, to be able to separate, how I'm feeling from what it is that they're going through. But I knew that it was something that really, intrigued me, and something that I wanted to pursue. So I guess it was sort of twofold: my own experience with body image and fitness, and then that experience over in Portugal sort of led me to therapy. And my own experience within therapy then gave me the courage to go back for another 4 years and to become a clinician. So.
Okay, and explain psychotherapy to people then. So as a phrase, is it a particular type of therapy? Is there a particular strategy of therapy, or what does it mean?
Well, there's so many different types. So the type of a therapist that I am is what we call humanistic integrative, which is a lot of jargon, but basically it means that whatever client is coming to see me, my approach will be different, because every person is different, and it's about respecting that. So there's many different branches. So there's CBT, existential psychotherapy, DBT. There's a lot of BTs, so it just depends. There's many different approaches.
Okay, and I think that's important for people listening in terms of we are all different, and we are all, we all need different ways to get the best out of ourselves, and it isn't a one step fits all approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the first time I reached out when I knew I wanted to receive mental health support from a professional, my first experience wasn't a good one. So I think it is about keeping that in mind, not tarring or marring, let's say, mental health with the brush of one experience. So just because I've had a bad experience here, it doesn't mean that my next experience is going to be bad. In fact, it could be a good one.
And from private practice and also from your Instagram account, what are the areas of mental health people are struggling with over the course of the last, say, 12 months or so? Because presumably it has been incredibly challenging for people between lockdowns, between COVID, in terms of anxiety and stress and everything related to that. What are you seeing that's common?
Well, there's a lot that's coming in right now, and I think it's, well, a lot of our attachment styles have been activated. So that's something that I speak about in the book, but it's something that's coming into therapy quite a bit right now. So how we're relating to each other, the distance that we have between those that we love, but also the environment that we've now been placed in. We're spending a lot more time, some of us, with our partners. We're spending a lot more time with our roommates. So there's a lot of relational issues emerging over the last 12 months, as well as, like you said, having to sit with uncertainty, having to sit with the anxiety of not knowing what the fate of the world is going to be, and yet we're bombarded with messages every day.
And that attachment piece, that's one of the practical takeaways that you use with people in terms of exploring attachment and creating meaningful relationships and being a good friend. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I guess attachment is how we relate to other people. It's our relationship blueprint, and it informs the type of, the emotional bond and connection we feel and establish with others. So it's formed in childhood, and it's formed through nurture and play, and usually the responsiveness of the parent, and then is further influenced by experiences that we have throughout our lifetime. So some experiences naturally will have us feeling more secure, and then other experiences will have us feeling less secure. And understanding attachment is it's helpful because it affects how we feel, it affects how we think and behave in every relationship we have, and it informs our relationship with intimacy and conflict and conflict resolution. So it, whether we're aware of it or not, it is present in all of our relationships, and coming to attachment is usually an aha moment for a lot of people.
And what if people have kind of negative relationships or negative friendships? What's the best way to deal with that or to approach that?
It's an interesting thing to consider. What is keeping me in this relationship if this person is having a negative effect on my well-being? So I think part of it is looking at the role that we're playing in that cycle. Am I enabling this person's behavior to a certain extent, or why is it that I'm maybe putting up with this? What is it that I believe of myself that I feel I have to tolerate this? Sometimes we stay in relationships, whether they're romantic or friendships, out of habit. Out of uncertainty of what could be beyond the scope of this person. So I would say, part of it is reflecting on what is the purpose of this relationship. What is this relationship serving in my life? And from there, what is it that I would like this relationship to be? Can I get intentional with what is happening here? And is this person open to an honest conversation about maybe the impact that they're having, or what our relationship has become? Can we look at that a bit more consciously, rather than continuing along and it chipping away at our self-esteem or our self-confidence?
Okay, great, fantastic advice. Some of the other takeaways that you recommend. One, I like the phrase on this one, which is reparenting, how to heal yourself.
Yeah. So, well, in essence, that's what happens in therapy. So, reparenting is this parallel process of, well, learning and unlearning. So we're learning how to meet the needs of our present day and younger selves, and we're unlearning the limiting beliefs that we may have attached or had attached to us, at a younger age, such as, I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough. The beliefs and the patterns that we develop in childhood, well, they stay within until we begin to question them. So when we reparent, we repattern these early beliefs.
Okay, so it is important to look back and reflect in many respects upon the beliefs that you have, looking at those in terms of potentially where they came from, and then looking at them and how to change them and improve them.
Yeah, well, it depends again on the type of therapy that you're going into. So with CBT, it would be a lot more focused on the thought and reframing the thought. But with the therapy that I work from, or the therapeutic modality that I work from, I would certainly be going into the past and the root of where this belief or where this thought might be coming from. And I think in terms of reparenting, that might sound like a very intimidating word, but it doesn't have to be, and I think that's what I tried to break down in every aspect in the book is, therapy and working on ourselves. It doesn't have to be this overwhelming thing of full of these words that we don't really know what they are, but we seem to be spouting them out anyway. In terms of reparenting, the first step or the first practical tool that we could do there in terms of healing ourselves is to, well, assess what type of parent we are to ourselves. So whether we're conscious of it or not, we already are a parent, and we're a parent to ourselves. So it's an interesting thing to consider, what type of parent am I to myself? Do I meet my needs? Do I celebrate my wins? Or am I a harsh, critical parent? So it may be worthwhile, taking some time to unpack where this voice may be coming from, because more often than not, it's been internalized or learned somewhere along the way. So whatever the answer is to that, is this the type of parent that I want to be to myself moving forward?
Amazing. Okay, I'm almost entranced in listening to your advice. It's practical and it's really simple, but it's really powerful stuff. Being kinder to yourself, that's your next one, and self-talk. And I think that's again really important. It's something we've been chatting about in the show over the course of the last couple of weeks and months, is around that kindness and not trying to be perfect, just trying to be good enough, and realizing that just to be gentle on yourself in many respects. And that self-talk is really important.
Yeah, it absolutely is, particularly now. And I think over the last 12 months, we have been in this space of, well, some of us, for what would I say? It's sort of like an exaggerated introspection. So there's been a lot of analysis. There's been a lot of sitting with our thoughts, and they're harder to escape. I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, walking through Dublin city centre at the height of of lockdown and being able to hear your footsteps, there's something really daunting about that. And there's well, that's part of the benefit of living in Dublin is the chaos of it. There's always something to do. It's such a busy city, and when that is gone, when that's not an option anymore, we're left with the structures of it, with the shadows of it. And that's what we're left with ourselves right now. Without the distractions of everyday life, we're having to sit with who we are. We're having to sit with our choices, with our relationships, which we can't really distract ourselves from anymore. So it's very easy to get bogged down in that, and part of how we're speaking to ourselves around that is going to really form how our mental health is feeling right now. And in terms of kindness, we all craft and create a story about who we are, and it's usually quite elaborate. This is my name, this is where I live, this is my family, this is my role in all of these different relationships. And when we hold that voice, that story, that we tell ourselves lightly and with curiosity, essentially when we don't take ourselves too seriously, the story or that kind voice can assist us in, well, expressing who we are and what it is that we want from life. But when the story is a critical one, when we're speaking to ourselves in the voice of a bully or someone who's quite harsh, and we start to believe that we're that story, it becomes, I am that story, so I am stupid, I'm a failure, I'm ugly, whatever else it might be, which understandably has a huge impact then on different areas of our life. So we might have a very loud inner bully right now, or we might be falling into particular thinking traps. So some of the most common ones actually would be fortune telling. So where we start to make negative predictions, which I think a lot of us are doing right now about the future. There's mind reading, where we believe that we just know what the other person is thinking about us without any evidence, and it's usually a negative prediction, as well as black and white thinking. So everything is good and everything is bad, or everything is perfect or a failure. So part of healing then, that self-talk, is, well, educating ourselves. So if we do recognize that we're falling into these thinking traps, or we have a very loud and brash inner bully, there are many books out there that will talk in length, or as little detail as you want, about how to work with these pieces. And as well as that, exploring the purpose of your self-talk. So our thoughts serve a purpose. So sometimes this is to protect us from a different emotion that we fear will feel overwhelming. Or it could, be protecting us from putting ourselves into a vulnerable position. So what we believe of ourselves, we'll find evidence for. And that's what our thoughts are doing constantly. So explore why we might be talking to ourselves in a harsh way, if we are right now.
And that leads us nicely to the next one, which is understanding your reactions and recognizing triggers.
Mm-hmm. So triggers then they're emotional buttons that connect the present moment to a memory or a situation in the past that was painful. It might have been wounding or traumatic. So we can be consciously or unconsciously triggered, and this will be felt emotionally, it can be felt physically, or both. So while it is possible to do some of this work by yourself when working with triggers, well, I will always recommend that you reach out to a psychotherapist for this work. It depends on the individual. Triggers can make us feel severely anxious, overwhelmed, depressed, or cause us to dissociate. So particularly with the latter, if that is what's happening for us, I always recommend reaching out to a qualified therapist. But beyond that, while a trigger is specific to an individual, it doesn't need to be closely related to the experience of the original event. So when we become triggered, the thinking brain can rationalize the situation, while the survival brain associates the trigger with the original event. And this could be anything. It could be any number of things, an anniversary date, a loud noise, financial stress, conflict, whatever. So sometimes the triggers will be more of a feeling. So if we feel ignored in a relationship, if we're feeling rejected or abandoned, if we're feeling taken for granted, and so on.
Okay. And next up, self-regulation, how to soothe yourself.
So this isn't something that will come naturally to many people. For a lot of us, we have to practice self-regulation. So there are many different ways that we can begin to deepen our capacity to sit with uncertainty and uncomfortable feelings. So this could be breath techniques, sensory practices, could be mindfulness, or doing something creative. So on that, it is worth mentioning that what works for one person won't work for another. And again, for another, it may have a harmful effect on their well-being, particularly if they've been subjected to something traumatic. So say, we say that getting into the body is good, and being more conscious of how we're feeling is good, but this won't be for everyone, at least not right away. So there might be some work that we have to do towards feeling safe in our body. So in regards to that, more creative practices or something that has us focusing on experiences outside of the body would be more beneficial in those moments. But beyond that, engaging in meditation practices or breath techniques or something mindful like cooking dinner, and that is our central focus, or playing the guitar. Taking moments for that to be our sole focus.
And is it important to say on that one in terms of, that those moments should be away from technology? So scrolling through Instagram or scrolling through Twitter or Facebook or whatever, while it might be mindful, it's not necessarily the same as cooking a dinner or playing the guitar or whatever, playing chess or doing some art or whatever it may be. Yeah. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm just going to pick on your brains.
Well, I guess I can only come from my own opinion on that, and I think you're right. We're very good at being sucked into the vortex of social media. So we might go on with good intentions. I'm going to go on to this app, or I'm just going to go on to Instagram and read that quote because that makes me feel really grounded. We're very good at becoming distracted on there. Rather, the apps are very good at distracting us. So the more that we can step away from technology, the better. I don't think it's so much about avoiding it altogether. I think it's about being intentional. What is my purpose here?
Okay, great. Next one up and final one up is setting boundaries. Practice genuine and useful self-care. This is a nice one. I presume this comes in around kind of saying no a little bit more and having boundaries for things that are I suppose good for you or bad for you or something like that.
Yeah, so I think one of the main issues actually that comes up with setting boundaries with family, friends, or partners, or whatever the relationship is, dealing with boundary guilt. So feeling that, I can't say that because they'll be upset or they'll be off with me. So it's important to remind ourselves that, well, firstly, boundaries are about improving the health of our relationships. So, it's selfless in that regard. Think about it. If we keep saying yes to something that we want, if we keep saying yes to another person, and then suddenly we want them to show up to something, or we'd like them to do us a favor and they say no, we're going to be sitting with a lot of resentment and frustration. So it is about improving the health of the relationship. As well as that, the fallout from a no is rarely as bad as you think it will be. So we're going to be carrying the weight and the worry and the guilt, and the other person, particularly if they're close to us, they're not going to bat an eyelid. So say no, feel uncomfortable saying no. I think that's part of it. That comes into therapy quite a lot. I know what I need to do. This is the result that I want. I'm not comfortable doing that thing that I know I need to do. So you tell me another way of going about it so that I can get the same result. And ultimately, it's about addressing that. It's not a bad thing if you're going to feel uncomfortable with saying no to this person. So say no, feel uncomfortable about it, and just let it go. Because your friends will most likely forget about it. An occasional no is very different to only no's.
And does that get easier with practice? Presumably it does.
Absolutely. And it's about, remembering that communicating your boundary to someone, you're choosing temporary discomfort over this growing resentment, and you're choosing authentic connection over people pleasing. So what is the point of this relationship if I'm not really showing up as myself, if I'm only showing up to facilitate whatever it is that this person expects, or I perceive they expect of me. So at the start, boundaries can be incredibly difficult because in a way we're choosing to step out of the role that we've taken up, or that has been placed on us, or both. So we're changing, however minutely, the shape of the relationship, the perimeter, the parameters of the relationship. So naturally that is going to feel quite difficult in the beginning, but over time it becomes easier, to advocate for ourselves.
I'm going to bring the interview full circle now. I'm going to bring it back to Instagram, because I always ask people who have big Instagram followings this very same question, because I'm intrigued by everyone's answer. Do you feel pressure by the fact that you've got such a big following? And if so, how do you deal with it?
I do. I'm trying to think, is there a way of phrasing that or going beyond that? Yes, I do. I feel I feel a big pressure from it. Originally, when I started the page about 2 years ago, and part of it was exposure therapy, really putting my voice and opinion out there, because I would have battled with feeling like my voice had merit or had value. So part of me creating the page was, well, to face that, to challenge that. And I didn't expect it to grow as much as it has. And I do. I feel a pressure now. It's harder to post. There is a part of my mind at the moment, anyway, that is on the outlook. What have I missed here? What is so glaringly obvious to everyone else that's going to view this? And I have missed it, and then I'm going to get this onslaught of reaction, and then then I go up in flames. So there is a certain level of pressure that comes with seeing those numbers as high as they are. But how I'm dealing with it at the moment is to go back to, well, the core reason that I began the page. Am I just posting today because I feel I have to, I feel I should, because the numbers are going down, or because I feel like I have something to say? Is this something that I feel I would have benefited from at a different time in my life? So reminding myself of, well, the reason that I showed up in the first place, and trying to disconnect myself from the analytics, which is very difficult when you have a book coming out and you have people that they're asking for numbers and whatnot. But yeah, trying to keep a distance from the numbers as well has been useful for me. So that's where I'm at with it at the moment. I'm hoping I'll get better at it.
Sarah, it's been fascinating getting to chat to you. We've got some brilliant nuggets of information and takeaways for our listeners, that is for sure. Remind us of the name of the book and obviously your Instagram account as well for people who want to follow you.
Yeah, so the book is called 5 Minute Therapy. I have a copy. I didn't plant this here, but it is there. I'm sort of surrounded by them right now. The book is called 5 Minute Therapy, and the Instagram page is @TheMindGeek.
Amazing. Sarah Crosby, thank you so much for joining us today. The very best of luck with the book. No doubt it'll be absolutely huge. Brilliant tips and brilliant content. We really appreciate it. Folks, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Take some of those nuggets away and put them into practice. As ever, you know where we are, realhealth@independent.ie, @Karl Henry PT on Twitter and on Instagram. And we're back next week with more Real Health. Slán go fóill.
Leia Healthcare, looking after you always. Proud sponsors of Real Health with Karl Henry.